Evil Planet.
All right. We have quite a lot of stuff to talk about today. In fact, there's so much to talk about, so much that we wanted to talk about, that we kind of have to cut a lot of stuff and just focus on certain things. I mean, we're going to go through a decent amount of this stuff pretty quickly today. Some things we won't be able to get into detail maybe as much as we would like to, but in future episodes, if further things happen with certain subjects that we talk about today, we can expand upon them and talk about them more. Before we get into it, though, how are you both doing today?
I've been hitting the pen, so I'm doing pretty good.
Hitting that vapor.
I've been doing all right. A lot of ups and downs mostly, but
yeah, I've honestly been pretty concerned for you both, but also just everyone living in America right now. It's a pretty nerve-wracking time, to say the least.
Especially if you're like a federal worker.
Yeah, or a minority, which is millions of people right there. Definitely some crossover as well. So, Trump has been president for barely over a month now, and already he and Elon Musk are attempting to just completely consolidate power in the executive branch, completely take over the United States, and basically just turn it into a full-on dictatorship, with not just Trump ruling, but Trump ruling as a dictator alongside a cabal of techno elites, billionaires, names that come to mind: Mark Zuckerberg, Mark Andreessen, Jeff Bezos, Tim Cook, Sundar Pichai, and so on. It's hard to find a good place to start, with talking about everything that's been going on. So let's just jump into things. Let's talk about DOGE first. Despite its name, DOGE is not, we want to say this again, it's not an official government department, which would have had to be established by some sort of act of Congress, which, did not happen. Instead, it came into being through a Trump presidential executive order, and it operates as an advisory board with at least 4 employees dedicated to each government agency. On paper, part of DOGE's mission, says the order, relates to IT upgrades aimed at boosting efficiency. It must finish its work by July 2026 per the BBC. We have a lot of stuff here, basically kind of jamming a bunch of articles together to kind of condense this. And
so in other words, DOGE is basically vicariously LARPing through the Trump administration.
Well, the crazy thing is that DOGE, by extension Elon Musk, has been doing these interviews with Trump where he's kind of just standing there like this little toady, little Grima worm tongue fuck looking all weird. He's just drugged out, oh yes, I'm working with President Trump, and Trump's there kind of looking at him. Elon's got his son there. Trump's just kind of ugh, gross. Elon's son's wiping his boogers on the presidential desk.
Bro, he's living the meme.
And then
that's another thing too. Recently, he did an interview at CPAC, probably one of the worst interviews of
with
all
the
time.
Chainsaw, right? Or
yeah, he had a chainsaw that he was gifted by Javier Milei, who recently did a rug pull. I think we talked about that recently. I don't know. It's hard to keep track of this stuff because we've been talking about all of these things are happening so fast.
Yeah, didn't Javier? Didn't he promote a crypto coin?
He helped promote a crypto coin called Libra that was immediately rug pulled. And then he deleted the post where he promoted on Twitter, and afterwards he's I had nothing to do with that. I was just paid to promote it. I don't know anything about it, actually.
Yeah, but isn't that archived, though? People can pull it up.
Oh, yeah. Well, these days with these motherfuckers, it does not matter. People like you and me know about this stuff, but if the average person ever hears about this, they don't really investigate. They don't really look into it. Nothing comes of this. Essentially, as people have been saying since, Trump's inauguration, crime is just legal now. If you know the right people, if you know the right loopholes, and this has always been the case to some extent or another, depending on, what jurisdiction you're in and whatnot, but, it's fucking, it's mental. Anyways, we need to continue because there's so much crap here. So let's talk about the Treasury for a moment. According to the New York Times, on January 31st, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, who we've spoken about before on the podcast, gave representatives of the so-called DOGE access to the highly sensitive federal payment system, handing Elon Musk and his team control of government spending. The team apparently consists of a bunch of broccoli-topped weirdos in their early 20s, one of whom goes by the name Big Balls. Several others have also been exposed as weirdo eugenicist neo-Nazi freaks. They all have extremely sketchy pasts. One of them was allegedly in a lot of hot water for selling corporate secrets to a competitor. So definitely the kind of person you want in charge of all of the government payment systems and all of your personal information. That's another detail too. They were like hacking into all of these systems, creating like clone servers, creating like these massive data banks where they were stealing people's information and recording it. And apparently they were trying to go in and fuck with like the coding for a lot of these government systems. And people were speculating, and this is, of course, we have to say speculation too, we don't know. But they were speculating that they were essentially kind of trying to inject like something into the system that could potentially be like untraceable or hard to trace, that could then be used to fuck with the system, manipulate it, or maybe record information or whatever, if they were kicked out of, you know, those offices and had their access to those systems revoked. It's all just like, it's very insane. The top Treasury Department official, I hope I'm pronouncing this correctly, David Lebrick, resigned after he refused to give Musk and his team access to the government's payment system. He was forced to fucking resign. It's pathetic. He was a career civil servant who oversaw more than 1 billion payments that the federal government made every year for fucking like decades. Many other federal employees have resigned or been forced to resign. Essentially, you know, some of them fired illegally with no reason. Many of them fired with just no reason. Just being illegally outright fired by the Trump-Musk administration. By the way, can we stop for a moment to talk about JD Vance? Where the fuck is this guy? He just got immediately sidelined.
Yeah, I haven't seen anything about him recently.
As one person said that I saw, he essentially got permanently seated at the kids' table.
It's a great way to put it.
Yeah, like, where the fuck is he? Like, Musk, it's funny because Musk is essentially like the president now. Like, he is pretty much directing Trump in terms of what to do. Like, he doesn't control every decision that Trump makes, but he is very much telling Trump, oh yes, do this, don't do this, oh this is a good idea, this is a bad idea. Gord, you kind of called it on one of the previous episodes. It seems like Trump really views Elon as some sort of super genius. Potentially, maybe he even views him as like essential to this administration. A lot of people have been speculating, like, when are we going to see the Trump-Elon breakup? It might not happen, at least not anytime soon. But there's an interesting twist here, which is this insane nutcase Kash Patel that was recently made head of the FBI. I think we may have talked about this on a previous ep. I can't remember. Have either of you seen this thing where he was like selling some sort of like scam pill that was supposed to like make it so that if you took the vaccine, you wouldn't shed it to other people and it would like remove the vax from your body? You see this shit?
No, I've never heard of that. But wait, what is vaccine shedding?
The vaccine and alleged negative effects from it. By the way, we don't endorse this. YouTube, if you're listening to this, if we got a fucking strike, we don't endorse this. We're trying to fucking point out how it's bullshit. But anyways, they're saying, if you get vaccinated, the spike proteins or whatever from the, you know, vaccine, from the virus that's in the vaccine or whatever, that will shed, and it can shed in the water supply or shed to other people. It's insane nonsense. But basically, Kash Patel was trying to sell this bullshit pill years ago that could supposedly remove the vaccination from your body or like reverse its effects, or it was just nonsense. And he also, I think at one point, wrote a book about how Trump was like a king. It's just fucking insane. And this guy was
unreal.
Yeah. But the reason that I bring up Kash Patel is that this guy apparently fucking hates Elon Musk. So if Trump turns on Elon at any point, he can just direct Kash Patel to start doing fucking federal investigations into Elon Musk.
So what do you think Kash Patel hates Elon so much?
I actually don't know. That's one thing that I haven't had the time to look into. But I'm sure it comes down to like money, power, maybe a little bit of like actual ideology, but you know, it's hard to say.
Well, you might not like the tech bro thing.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know enough about Patel, honestly.
My guess is that he takes the spotlight away from Donald Trump, so that might be a reason he hates him.
One specific quote that I've heard, not much detail, but Patel essentially said that he thinks that Musk is very dangerous. He basically thinks that Musk is a liability. Continuing though, because we're barely through this. Musk and associates working through DOGE pushed fuck tons of emails to federal employees, either outright threatening resignation or demanding that they at least justify their positions by replying to the emails that they received with at least 5 things they did recently for their job.
You know what's crazy is that it was an open email address, so like anyone could email it, and people have been passing it around, just emailing it bullshit. I think like what was the date on this? Because I heard that like it was an email that was sent over the weekend, and you were expected to fill it out like by Monday. You know, like some weird.
There have been multiple rounds of emails going out to federal workers for the last couple of weeks. So I don't know. Like they're going out to people in tons of different organizations.
I don't think people are actually. I don't think people are actually emailing them the 5 things that they did all week.
No,
because
in fact,
there is.
Sorry, go ahead.
I think I'm as you were about to say. Like in fact, he's doing like another round of emails saying like, "Hey, I'm gonna give you a second chance. Give me that list by like next week, and you'll get to keep your job."
Yeah, and one thing that's important too is he's kind of creating a giant phishing scheme for federal employees. Like, hey, give me the details of 5 things you did in the last week. It's like some of this information that they might be providing could be classified or sensitive. I think one of the later emails that got sent out, maybe one of the ones you're talking about, was like, by the way, please don't send any classified information in this unsecured email. Like, oh yeah, maybe that might be a bad idea. Well, whoops.
I think in corporate slang they call it like PEI or PII, like personal identifiable information.
It was like 5 lines. There was no formatting. It looked like some fucking jerk off and like Lagos just sent you an email trying to fucking get your passwords out of you. It was so stupid. It's so unprofessional. I'm like, what? It's like, what the fuck are you doing?
It's not even from like a .gov email address. No header, no footer, spelling mistakes, grammar errors.
Yeah, and a lot of this information, like you're saying, email addresses and stuff was like published publicly, so they were getting flooded with emails from like random people, just like sending them spam and trolling them. Moving along here, February 10th, ABC News reported that Musk and his DOGE team had gained access to at least 14 other federal agencies besides the Treasury, including the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, which they have pretty much destroyed, the Federal Aviation Administration, which they are in the process of destroying, the National Institutes of Health, which I believe has either been completely destroyed or is in the process of being destroyed, FEMA, Federal Emergency Management Agency, which they are trying to completely just wipe off the map, and the Department of Education, which they are currently, once again, attempting to completely gut. Musk, who has been given wide latitude by President Trump to slash government spending, has been fixated on the Treasury's payment processes, criticizing the department in a social media post on Saturday for not rejecting more payments as fraudulent or improper, which is, not how these processes work. And Musk has been told this many times, like he knows this. He's either just denying it and going, no, I'm going to do it this way because I'm rich and fuck you. Or he just doesn't believe people, and I don't know. That's just nonsense. I think he's just full of shit. He doesn't care what the laws are. He just thinks he's entitled to do it because he's gonna save the world. It's like this shit that was tweeted out either from like an official Trump account or the White House or whatever, where they said he who saves America, he doesn't have to follow the laws. The laws don't apply to him. It's like what? And then fucking they put something else out basically saying like, oh yeah, Trump's king, by the way. It's getting to the point where it's like, wait, isn't this why you have the Second Amendment to like stand up to? Anyways, go ahead.
So I'm actually looking at doge.gov/savings right now. So it on this page it says like a prompt about savings. It says, let's balance the budget. Doge's total estimated savings are $65 billion, which is the combination of fraud detection, deletion, contract/lease cancellations, contract/lease renegotiations, asset sales, grant cancellations, yada yada yada. And if you scroll down, you'll see a header for a table called Wall of Receipts, and you can actually expand and collapse this table. And if you expand the table, you'll just see nothing but Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, CFPB, over and over and over again.
One thing that's really important to mention is that Musk wants to turn Twitter into a payment processor along with other things That's one of the big reasons why he wanted to completely destroy the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, is because they would have been in charge of regulating and investigating him doing that with payment processors on Twitter, and they would have also been potentially responsible for denying him the ability to do that. One of the big reasons he's gutted so many of these agencies is that like a lot of them, like over a dozen of them had like dozens of individual investigations into his, several companies. Neuralink, SpaceX, Starlink. We're going to talk more about those in a moment here, but now all of those are going away because he's completely fucking gutted these organizations. It's a fucking shit show.
I'm reading.
Sorry,
I'm
go
reading.
ahead.
I'm reading through some of the descriptions of some of these agency cuts, and some of the savings just say $0, and it's for something like ProQuest digital content, or hold on, Politico Pro, or some bullshit.
Yeah, one interesting detail is right wingers were trying to say that Politico,
Exactly.
which is not they were trying to say that Politico is like a left-wing news organization. It's like center-right at best, but it'd be more accurately described as just a right-wing news organization. I mean, maybe you consider it center-right by American standards, but by any other standards, it's a right-wing news organization. But even then, what that is like Politico Pro, as far as I understand, was mostly used by people who are in the Washington political system. And Politico Pro would basically detail, a lot of stuff going on in politics that politicians need to be aware of. Oh, this bill passed, this regulation got changed, this person is the new head of blah, blah, blah. Stuff that the average person is, like, it's useless to them. They wouldn't give a fuck about it. And because of that, Politico Pro is really expensive because they're doing very, very niche journalism for very, very few people compared to other organizations. So the people who were paying for these Politico Pro organizations were like politicians who were basically getting the government to pay for them instead of there being, a politician giving this one news organization money directly, which could create a conflict of interest. When you actually like go into these things, it makes sense. And I'll say this too, I don't think Politico should have just been getting government handouts. There's definitely a better way that you could structure something like that. But to just, mischaracterize what was going on and just completely lie about it and then say, oh yeah, we destroyed that, now we saved a bunch of money. It's just nonsense. And another thing I want to mention here, I think you said it was 65 billion. The number that I saw was 55 billion, but it doesn't even matter because at best, when people have gone through and kind of audited this stuff and checked the receipts, at best, and this is being very generous to Musk, at best it was 2.5 billion or around there. One line item purported to be a $8 billion contract was actually worth $8 million, which is a factor of 1,000 times. This line item was quietly amended days later, and the DOGE Twitter account was trying to tell people that they never made that mistake, even though they clearly did. Other values were arrived at with absurd methods, such as triple counting one USAID IDV. And you guys must know as well, everyone out there listening, about how just the USAID cuts are already costing lives every single day. We have a few examples here quick. A 71-year-old woman in Thailand who was a refugee from Myanmar. She was on an oxygen tank. She had that cut off and taken away from her. I believe she was in a hospital that was receiving funding from USAID. She was sent home, and a few days later, she died. We also heard of the horror story. This is just so fucking horrifying. Oh, man. Anyways, let's continue. We've also heard of the horror story from a USAID employee who was stationed overseas, who shared the account of his pregnant wife not receiving a medevac for emergency health care because of directives from Washington. It took the intervention of a U.S. senator to reverse this, but it was too late and she died. But Trump and Elon just don't give a fuck. You guys want to add any comments before I continue reading? Go right ahead.
I don't think so. As awful as it is, it doesn't come as a surprise, and I don't really know what else to say, honestly.
Yeah, fair enough. I just didn't want to continue and
No
steamroll
problem.
without giving you both an opportunity to add any remarks.
By
Oh,
the
go
way,
ahead.
you did say you read about 55 billion. Well, I read 65 billion because it actually is on the site right now. saying that they saved $65 billion.
Yeah, the numbers are just fucking full on bullshit. And I even saw some sort of insider quote from somebody who's working at one of these organizations that's had their funding cut. They basically said, like, everybody, even the higher ups at these organizations, they know that what Elon is putting out there is full of shit, but they just can't do anything about it because this is coming from on high, you know?
Some of the cuts I'm seeing here for Social Security offices in different states too. Did you guys hear about Trump saying that he was going to give a stimulus check for 20% of all the money they save?
I heard something about that.
I heard anywhere from $5,000 to $8,000, but
It's bullshit.
yeah,
Nonsense,
if a majority of the money that you say you're saving is fake, then you're not going to get anything.
Well, they were like, oh, we have all this money in the coffers of the CFPB that they've managed to get back from Americans, and they're talking about like redistributing that to Americans, and even if they split it up between every American citizen, which, you know, would count, you know, children and people who don't pay taxes and whatnot, so not a great number, but even if you like doubled or even let's say you tripled it and you gave it to like only people who were like, you know, 18 or older, paid taxes, were working, and older people, whatever, they would receive at best like $20. And that's like quadrupling it by all estimates and withholding some from like younger people, obviously. Like, it's just such fucking nonsense. Like, wow, the government's going to give you $20. And what do you receive in return? Oh, you don't have the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau anymore, so banks can just steal money out of your account and you're fucked. Coinbase can just take all your crypto and you have no fucking recourse or anything. Another thing we have to mention too, because you brought up Social Security, is that Trump and Elon have been going around just completely lying about Social Security, saying that there's people in the Social Security system that are like 150 years old, supposedly, and receiving money. They're saying that that's waste, fraud, and abuse. The reason that the number 150 keeps coming up is because these systems apparently will default to that date if they don't have certain parameters in their data set. You see this sometimes with Twitter too. For example, I've seen this myself. If Twitter glitches out, sometimes you'll see a bunch of posts with no content and the date will be set to like 1969. This is just something that computer systems do sometimes. You know, they have certain dates and numbers that correspond to different things in the code. This idea that there's BS Social Security checks being sent out to like who fucking knows, it's just fucking nonsense.
It's like 1861 is the Civil War.
Yeah, we're talking about 150 years ago, or 160 or something like that. Like in the realm of 150 years ago.
You were talking earlier. Sorry, I had to get up for a second.
Oh, no problem.
You're talking about COBOL, right? Yeah. So COBOL, apparently in their program, they have like a default date that gets set, and that's not uncommon for programs where people have to enter date times. By the way, you either put nothing, leave it null, or you put a value for it. So what did they default it to? Like 19...
I think it was 150. 150 years was some sort of default date.
So like 18 something?
Something like that. Yeah. Basically, from what I'd heard, the system would default to 150 when it didn't have certain details like dates or whatever in the system. I mentioned too, I've seen it on Twitter, like if you have a post that glitches out, sometimes your feed will glitch out and you'll see posts from people with like nothing in the post. It just says like posted in 1969. Like, what the fuck? Maybe it's not exactly 1969, but it's something like that. Fucking date from like decades ago. Also, one thing that's very important to consider in all of this is while Elon Musk is slashing all of these government contracts, he has secured for himself multiple new contracts, such as an additional $38.5 million for SpaceX and a Starlink contract specifically for the FAA, which he just gutted. So, like, it's outright corruption, you know, self-dealing. I'm kind of shocked that other countries aren't, you know, doing more to kind of bring awareness to this, because the US has been for a long time just trying to, you know, bully pretty much every country on the global stage into doing what they want, or, you know, sometimes they use the carrot and stick approach. A lot of times they just hit you with a stick. So I don't know. I feel like the BRICS system is going to come out on top here. I was learning a little bit more about it today when I was doing some research on some of this stuff, and yeah, things are not looking good for U.S. hegemony. Just the other day, Trump and Elon rubber-stamped the outright theft of millions of dollars from a New York government bank account. This money was for reimbursement to New York City and the state, I believe, as well, as they had taken in a load of migrants that had been bussed up there by a total piece of dog shit, Greg Abbott, as a political stunt. But it doesn't stop there for New York. The Trump administration is essentially protecting Eric Adams, a corrupt mayor of New York, from prosecution and jail for his corruption on the condition that he do their dirty work and remain loyal to Trump. Eric Adams' charges for corruption were dismissed without prejudice, which means the charges could be refiled against the mayor at any time in a later date. This type of brazen corruption and lawfare is the main move of Trump's second term, with the president threatening to withhold critical funding to states on the grounds of absurd things like transgender athletes being allowed to compete in sports.
Like the state of Maine
yeah.
recently.
Yeah, what the fuck is, like, what is going on?
Yeah, the governor said, like, hey, I'll follow state and federal law. And Trump was like, I am federal law.
Yeah.
He went
Judge Dredd moment.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm
like, judge, jury, executioner.
You betray the law!
Judge, jury, executioner. Soaking wet. In other news, I was talking about DOGE here. We got something from the San Francisco Sheriff's Department. Around noon on Valentine's Day, 3 men dressed in DOGE shirts and MAGA hats entered various offices at San Francisco City Hall, demanding that employees turn over digital information related to alleged wasteful government spending and fraud. The employees refused their requests and called San Francisco Sheriff's deputies. Deputies immediately responded, but the individuals had fled the building. The incident is still under investigation, with the FSSO of reviewing surveillance and using other investigative tools to pursue leads. They do not believe the individuals requesting access to city files were representatives of DOGE, or from DOGE. So, apparently there's a bunch of fucking weirdos running around pretending to work for Elon, trying to gain access to sensitive government files. Who the fuck knows if that's...
Rules.
Yeah, who knows if that's opportunists or like spies from other countries? Who the fuck even knows? I wouldn't be surprised if it was Mossad, to be honest. I want to go back to this because we didn't get a chance to talk about it. Or at least go into detail about it here. I don't have too much, but I want to mention this. We were talking about some hardcore Trump supporters turning on him. They're at the very least, starting to question the MAGA narrative, which is important. You see this a lot with the Mangione stuff recently. Bill Burr turning on billionaires and saying they should be put down like dogs. And Bill Burr said that, we're just, repeating what he said, we're just reporting on it. But yeah, sorry, go ahead.
That's so crazy. Like, out of like the entire popular comedy sphere, you have one guy who's actually like being somewhat, based, saying like relatable shit.
Well, old Billy Big Balls, as I like to call him, has always been, he's always been a real average Joe in the sense that like he understands the plight of the average person. I've seen a lot of people saying like he's the fucking, Bill Hicks or George Carlin or what. Like, no, I don't really like that framing of it. Like, Bill Burr is Bill Burr, like
Right.
He doesn't have to be compared to some other great comedian to have, value or for you to, actually consider what he's saying. But I get the impulse to say that because, he stands out from the rest, definitely.
I want to ask, where is Dave Chappelle at right now?
I don't think Dave Chappelle gives a fuck, dude. Like,
Nah, he's living his best life.
Dave Chappelle has firmly been on the side of rich people for a long time. Remember when he brought Elon Musk on stage at that one show and everyone booed?
it correlates like.
And then Musk was like, sorry, I gotta get this out. Musk was like, yeah, it was like 90% cheers and 10% booze.
They were actually saying boo earns. Yeah, so one clip that went viral of a MAGA support, there's been like a bunch of these, but one that I want to focus on was this MAGA supporter who had taken out a bunch of loans to get farm equipment and things of that nature because he was going to be reimbursed by USAID because they had a bunch of programs, and I think the one that he was involved in was growing food that could then be packaged, processed, sent overseas to give to, countries and organizations that are helping starving people, places that have had, hit by hardship and they're sending aid, things like that. That guy was saying, yep, I'm going to lose my farm now and probably go bankrupt because the subsidies and support he was getting from USAID program that he was a part of is just gone. Like, it just doesn't exist anymore. And there was also another guy I want to mention quick. He was like somebody who was all for DOGE, and then he got fired from his federal job. And he's like, huh? Sorry, go ahead.
The farmer you're talking about, is that different from the guy who got money from the Biden administration for like Build Back Better?
I believe it may have been the same guy or somebody else. I'm not exactly sure. I know there was an example of somebody who had received funds through the Inflation Reduction Act, who was also talking about like losing their home or losing their farm or something.
Yeah, that's the guy I'm talking about, not Build Back Better, Inflation Reduction.
Yeah.
He was a farmer. He got money promised to him. He spent a good bit of his money knowing that he was going to get money back from the government, and he never got the money from the government, so just went bankrupt.
Yeah, honestly, I think we might be mixing up the same story here. I had heard about a farmer who had lost funding due to the cuts to USAID, but honestly, it's like hard to keep track of this stuff because there's so many fucking people who have been fired or been just fucked over by these programs being annihilated.
Or planes falling out of the sky. I think it's like, what are we up to? Like 4, 5
Oh
now?
no, there's been like close to a dozen. I mean, it depends it depends how you slice it too. You know that collision between the military helicopter and the plane? I had heard at least that was the first mid-air collision like that in decades in the US. It reminds me of Idiocracy when he goes to the future. I've been talking to people about this lately because it's so striking, but it reminds me of Idiocracy when he, wakes up in the future and planes are just falling out of the fucking sky. There's like a boat on top of a building. Like, how the fuck did that get there?
It's funny is Musk looks like one of President Camacho's cabinet. He just needs that giant medallion.
Yeah, well, he's got he was wearing a fucking gold chain when he did that shit with the chainsaw at CPAC. Like, almost every element is there. It's crazy. Another thing, too, that we have to fucking bring up is they even fired officials in charge of the U.S. nuclear weapons stockpile. Whoops. Like, they tried to hire a bunch of them back, and they couldn't fucking reach them because the email addresses they used have been fucking discontinued or, like, removed or whatever. It's just, oh my god, dude. It's such a fucking disaster. It's insane. All right, so what else do we have here? You, Gord, actually put this in here. You wanted to make a note of this so we could bring it up. The national debt has risen by almost $7.8 trillion during Trump's time in office. That's nearly twice as much as what Americans owe on student loans, car loans, credit cards, and every other type of debt other than mortgages combined, according to data from the Federal Reserve Bank of New York.
Yep. This is an article from 2021, so 4-year-old article, but just let it show. This guy has already had one opportunity to do exactly what he said he was going to do. Like, he was going to cut spending, he was going to reduce the deficit, he was going to cut the debt massively, and he ends up adding to the debt more than any other president in my lifetime, at least.
Yeah.
And all of that money he wasted could have gone to all of those good things like student loans, car loans, mortgages, whatever. But it just went down the crapper.
Yeah, they had to give tax cuts to billionaires. They had to give massive handouts to corporations.
I think it mentions in the article, it mentions the Inflation Reduction, or not the Inflation Reduction Act, the tax cut, the Trump tax cuts.
Yeah, as far as I know, like, in those tax cuts, like, there was some things that were kind of beneficial for people of lower incomes, but as far as I know, those expired a while ago, and all that remains is the tax cuts for rich people. So, from my understanding, taxes have effectively gone up on poor people, and taxes have gone down for rich people.
Do you remember them floating the idea of just doing like a 30% federal sales tax?
Oh my god. Their ideas are so stupid. They were talking about getting rid of income tax, and I think that's what you're talking about, replacing it with Sales tax? Like what?
That and tariffs. So tariffs will increase
Oh,
the
God.
cost of the good, and then the tax is going to be 30%. A higher price good is going to have a higher sales tax.
I'm just gonna leave myself a note later when I'm editing this to insert some sort of Looney Tunes comedy sound effect to punctuate how ridiculous that is. Here we go. All right, there we go.
Yeah, typically sales taxes help the wealthy. Income tax usually helps poorer people because you can have a progressive income tax where the lowest earning individuals can pay a smaller percentage of their yearly income.
Yeah, like I think where I'm at in Canada, specifically in Ontario, I don't know if this is provincial or federal, but I believe could be federal. I'm pretty sure. The first bracket is like if you make $55,000 Canadian or less every year, I think you're in the 15% tax bracket. And considering what we get for our taxes, which is a lot better than a lot of stuff in America, I'm pretty satisfied with it. I calculate my deductions and whatnot, and I'm like, okay, fair enough. We also have like the Canada pension plan. We pay into, unemployment and stuff like that. We're getting into like extremely dry territory, so let's just put a pin in that for now. But we do have some bonus stuff to talk about. We're getting to the end of the material that we have tonight. But I didn't want this to drag on too much because, it's already depressing enough talking about a lot of this stuff. So let's start with, I'm going to switch around the order of the bonus items here. Bonus item number 1, just a quick little tidbit to let you guys know what's up. More chemical disasters are happening all the time. Here's one example. Massive industrial chemical explosion flattens Parker Lord Core facility in Sagertown, Pennsylvania. Toxic fire burned for hours and residents were asked to shelter in place. Good thing Musk and Trump are destroying the DOJ, FEMA, and the EPA. I pulled that from Twitter there. I saw that and I was like, oh my God, fuck, man. It's just going on all the time. Just, wanted to throw that in there for a little extra evil planet action. The more important bonus item that we have here, though, it says, we have a headline here. I'm going to pull up the article. Many members of Congress are suffering from dementia, and they receive free treatment at an exclusive secret hospital, and they refuse to be honest with the public about it. You have an article here from the American Prospect. Aging members of Congress refuse to disclose details of their top secret hospital. The Office of the Attending Physician gives politicians nearly unlimited medical care for about $54 a month. After a presidential election that saw an 82-year-old commander-in-chief unable to complete sentences in a debate or instill confidence in the public that he could carry out his duties, elected leaders in Congress are faring no better. In the past 2 months alone, 82-year-old Rep. Kay Granger was discovered to be living in an assisted living facility. Nice phrasing in the article there. We actually talked about that on a previous show. She has fucking dementia, and they were kind of bullshitting people about that and trying to hide it. There's also the 74-year-old Representative Jerry Connolly, who won a high-profile leadership position on the House Oversight Committee after revealing he is battling highly terminal esophageal cancer, and that position was given to him over AOC, which is clearly a stupid decision, but at this point I don't know what we expect. 82-year-old Senator Mitch McConnell fell twice on Capitol Hill just months after blacking out during a press conference. Also, I think we were talking about on a previous show about how fucked up Mitch McConnell is now. He has like that one hand that's like Dumbledore in Harry Potter. It's just like rotting off before your very eyes.
I saw a picture of Mitch, and he was in a wheelchair, high-fiving like this fat senator riding a scooter.
Yeah, there was another senator. There was a black senator. I can't remember the name, but he was being like wheeled around. Looked like some Weekend at Bernie's type shit. And somebody took like a picture or a video, and he's like, "What the fuck's wrong with you? Turn that shit off. Stop videoing me." It's like you're a public servant. What the fuck are you expecting? Like, come on. 76-year-old Rep. John Larson appeared to have a stroke on the House floor. Well, his staff later said it was a bad reaction to a new medication. What has eluded attention is the highly secretive hospital housed on Capitol Hill and funded by the taxpayers that provides both emergency and primary care to an aging political class, which some have come to describe as a gerontocracy. It also runs classified programs known only to some members of Congress. And the article goes on here. I'm just going to read a little bit from the end. One has to consider the fact that these politicians, and I'm kind of paraphrasing here, I'm going to butcher it. One has to consider the fact that for much less than the average person pays for the cost of a cell phone bill a month, these politicians receive health care from the best doctors in the world. As ABC reported in 2009, Steve Kagan of Wisconsin, one of 15 medical doctors in Congress, is the only member of either the House or Senate who has had no health insurance coverage. Kagan, a Democrat and advocate for health care reform, says he turned down the plan he was offered through the Federal Employee Health Benefits Program. Quote here says, "I said, I'll tell you what, I respectfully decline until you can make the same offer to everyone that I have the honor of representing. I just don't think it's fair." There you are. I think that's the best line to close on with that bonus article there. And that's the end of the show for today. So, the planet is getting more and more evil every single day. And it doesn't seem like it's going to slow down anytime soon.
No, but I do see some people actually taking action, like going out,
Yes.
protesting. More people are going to town halls, complaining.
Oh yeah, you've probably seen the same videos that I've seen of town halls just fucking exploding. And Kyle Kalinske and a couple other people were talking about this recently, or they were pointing out these are like places that Trump either outright won or like barely won. So there's clearly a lot of support for Trump there. And these town halls are full of old white people, and they are fucking furious.
Yes. And not only that, you have like Bernie Sanders going to Nebraska.
Oh, yeah.
Going to places like Nebraska, Iowa, all these like Midwestern red states where he's doing speeches and doing like meet and greets and stuff. And he's actually having to turn people away.
Yes, they had to turn away like almost 1,000 people when he was in Nebraska at this one place. Yeah, I saw that.
I listened to like a little bit of it on a car drive home. And he said that in his opening, he said that he was at one packed venue having to go to another packed sold out venue like after that one, like a block down the street.
Yeah, honestly,
it's
like
crazy.
One of the most insane things of the last 10 years is the fact that you guys could have had President Bernie Sanders.
Oh, we had two chances to have President Bernie Sanders. Never. And now I'm just kind of like it's just kind of too late. But I mean,
hopefully he can pass the torch.
This threat could have been like eliminated, long ago. But like our standard milquetoast politicians just don't give a fuck and appeal to the status quo.
Oh yeah, it's crazy. You guys could have elected Bernie Sanders twice, but instead
Seriously.
you got Donald Trump twice.
Now
we're getting the Elon shadow presidency.
Yeah.
Well, think about it like this. We didn't just get Elon, or not Elon. We got Donald Trump twice. We got Donald Trump, Joe Biden, Donald Trump plus Elon. So like Donald Trump twice, Joe Biden once, and now we have Elon tacked onto it.
Yep.
This has been a really shitty 9 years.
It's been the worst decade in this country's history by far.
Really has been.
Yeah, I don't know if
Like
I'd necessarily
Jefferson's-
agree with that, but it's got to be fucking close. It's definitely probably one of the top 5 worst decades. Like, it's hard for me to say that I would want to live in any other decade aside from maybe the preceding one for a variety of reasons. But even then, like, there's just so much shit that we all are aware of at this point. We all have identified the problems. And I don't think that we all have surefire 100% guaranteed gonna work solutions, but a lot of the solutions that I've seen for the last several years, at the very least, sound a fuck of a lot better than whatever people are doing right now. I'll say that.
I definitely think there is there's a broader consciousness.
Yes. I've been saying this to people very recently. I have to personally hope that things are going to get better because I just cannot allow myself to go to any sort of doomer place with this for the sake of my own mental health, but also just because I'm not gonna fucking give up on this shit. I think I've said it on the previous episode, but at no other time in the last 15 years, the whole time that I've been plugged into politics on whatever level. At no other time have I wanted more to like stop, like just paying attention and shit. But I don't feel like I can, honestly.
Yeah, it's unavoidable at this point.
Yeah.
So,
What's up, Gord? Gord was gonna say something. Oh shit.
hello.
Gord.
Yeah, both of you are cutting out.
Oh, there's a
badly.
lag.
Oh yeah, there's some lag going on.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we pretty much arrived at the end of the episode there. Thank you both for coming on. All right, well, I think we're going to leave it there for tonight. Thank you both for coming on. It was a good one.
Yeah, no problem.
No problem.
I will see you all later, as well as audience. Y'all have a good one.